Chapter 13. Practice Being Excited. Bill Foster. We arrive at the Turks and Caicos Islands at midday after overnighting in Miami, Florida. It takes only a few minutes to clear customs at the small island airport because they are expecting us. I've always found that things go faster when following a well thought out plan. I have been corresponding with the customs departments for several weeks, so there are no unexpected hitches or delays over our small mountain of equipment. A very old black man with sparse gray hair is waiting for us in the airport parking lot. Compliments of the captain of the boat we have chartered. The elderly man has glasses so thick that he stares for several seconds before he realizes what he is looking at. Yet the real surprise is the condition of the dilapidated flatbed truck he is leaning against. My eyes rivet on the old truck's shadow at his feet. The bright morning sun is rising directly behind this rusty old bucket of bolts. The deceptive vehicle's shadow is riddled with patches of dazzling light from the fist-sized rust holes. Lying beneath the ancient truck are bits of rust debris. This antique is rusting apart before my eyes. I gingerly jump up onto the wood flatbed and promptly put one foot through a patch of wood rot, which catches the attention of our elderly chauffeur. Hey there, boy. Be careful with old Betsy. She ain't the spry girl she used to be. What did he say? Henry, the driver, is eyeing Michelle suspiciously. Michelle was just agreeing with you, and he said in French that it was true. I don't have much use for words that's got no meaning for me, complains the old man as he glares at Michelle. Pardon-moi. Michelle offers a short bow. La commis est la Paris. What did he say? Henry is getting huffy. He asked you to excuse him, and he said your truck is perky. I offered Michelle's defense. Only somewhat mollified, Henry pitches up his pants and leans against the truck and puts a possessive hand on the dented hood. Well, you better get your gear loaded and be more careful. As we cautiously lowered our equipment under Henry's watchful eye, Michelle leans toward me and quietly says, Perde in French means to waste away. I said his truck is wasting away. I glance over at Henry, who was wiping a small opening in a very dusty windshield to see out of. You want to ride up front? I asked Michelle. No way. I want to be able to jump free if he's going to run into anything. After all the gear is loaded, the whole team opts to ride on the back of the truck for safety reasons. The engine coughs, chokes, then labors to start with a loud rumbling grumble. An acid cloud of black smoke spews from the broken muffler to rise thickly around us through the holes in the flatbed. Henry leans out of the cab to ask if we're ready, then loudly grinds the gears, and with a lurch and a backfire, we're off on another expedition. The ride through the small town of Prudencia is memorable only in that it is seen through a dense smoke screen. There is only one spot on Main Street, which is fortunate as we are nearly smothered in a hovering cloud of diesel smoke waiting for it to turn green. 20 minutes later, we thankfully arrive at a white sand beach with patches of scrub and grass growing on small dunes. The sand is actually tiny bits of broken coral. Our feet sink several inches into the soft coral bits as we carry load after load of bulky equipment out to the water's edge. 100 yards from shore, the charter boat, Island Diver, awaits our arrival. I see a man at the stern endlessly trying to start an outboard engine, which finally stutters into a reluctant idle. It sounds like the engine is running on only one or two cylinders. The man in the sorry looking inflatable slowly motors in our direction. At first, I think his slow speed is because of the poor condition of the outboard, but I am wrong. It is the pitiful state of the rubber pontoons of his Zodiac that so limits his passage through the waters. There are no floorboards, so the little inflatable awkwardly accordions over each wave, mostly under its own power, but assisted by a small wave. The inflatable lands on the beach with a wet sounding plop. The man leaps out of the mutant Zodiac, which is covered with repair patches of various shapes and colors, then happily shakes my hand. Captain Bill Ratty, at your service. With a sense of dread, I look at the slim man standing before me. He is wearing frayed cut-off jeans with a t-shirt sporting a multitude of holes and rust stains. It looks like he cut his own hair with lawn shears. Just then, the dilapidated truck backfires. Drawing my attention to it, I glance down at the broken down inflatable, then look in horror at the charter boat 100 yards from shore. The boat is of a design that went out of popularity around 30 years ago. In my mind, I remember his colorful brochure and lively description of the charter boat's amenities. Captain Ratty, I asked carefully, do you get many charters? First one this year, he grins. Really needed the money, too. Got a few repairs I've been wanting to make. I prod the inflatable hull only half full of air. It is so soft and squishy. The hull leaks a little, confides Ratty. We just have to pump her up between trips. Been meaning to fix it, but I put all my time and money into maintaining the Island Diver. Ain't no other boat like her. I don't doubt it, mumbles Michelle. Then I hear him whisper to Mark and Clay, the other two members of our team. Did he really say his name is Ratty? Captain Ratty is a good dozen feet away, but he hears the comment. It's true, he answers. The local kids sometimes make fun of my name. It's a shame because I could take them out on the water for some fun with dolphins, but it's kind of hard to be friendly with people who are laughing at you. Soon we are chugging out to the charter boat. As I look at the floating wreck awaiting us, I'm reminded of the dilapidated riverboat from the old black and white movie, The African Queen, with Humphrey Bogart. As the beat up inflatable accordions over the waves, leaving a froth of leaking air bubbles in its wake, I get a better look at our barely floating home for the next 3 weeks. Now, don't judge Island Diver by her looks. I don't waste money on new paint if it ain't needed, confides Captain. That's just makeup anyway. It's the old gal's heart that I worry about. Worry about? I echo. Is it the engines we're talking about? Well, parts aren't easy to come by, he complains, and the tropical salt air isn't too good for her complexion. Michelle Delorey whispers into my ear. What is he talking about? Rust, I whisper back. We arrive alongside. Incredibly, Michelle says dryly in French. What does that mean? Asks Captain Ratty. Incredible, answers my Michelle. The captain beams at what he accepts as a compliment. She is incredible. I built her myself in my backyard, back stateside. Really? Michelle looks at the boat's blocky lines. Out of plywood, no less. Yep. Finished her 15 years ago, the captain says proudly. Been at sea ever since. Pulling alongside the barge-like boat, I grab a handrail to stop our forward motion, and it promptly comes off in my hand. Don't worry, just a little bit of wood rot, Captain Ratty says, taking a piece of rail and tossing it into a box of other items awaiting repair. Climbing onto the main deck of Island Diver, I can't help thinking that Captain Ratty's first plan might have been to build a mobile home. Then, halfway through the project, he decided he'd rather have a boat. Square and blocky is a good term to describe this mutant floating shipwreck. The vessel, I hesitate to call it a ship, is wide and stout at the main deck with a covered upper area that sags here and there depending on the lack of application of varnish. The team is not enthusiastic as we spend most of the afternoon storing equipment. When Captain Ratty announces that he's going to start the engines and shift our anchorage, the team begins making bets in French as to whether the engines will even start. After a full minute of serious cranking, one engine after the other belches smoke and wheezes into an asthmatic rumble. The whole boat vibrates as he engages the out of sync engines, while Island Diver chugs laboriously to her new anchorage. Michelle voices what the rest of the team is thinking. Why are we chartering this horrible boat? We're aboard for the best reasons, I whisper back. We're saving money, maybe, hazards Michelle. No, I reply softly. It seems Jojo really likes this boat and is very fond of its skipper. Really? My answer startles Michelle. It's true, responds Captain Ratty, who is a good 20 feet away. The man must have radar ears to have heard us, particularly over the chugging of the decrepit engines. Jojo spends more time with Island Diver and me than with anyone else, almost to add authority to his words. The dolphin in question arrives several seconds later. However, instead of heading for the prow like most dolphins to surf the bow wave, Jojo disappears under the stern of the boat. Where did he go? Asked Michelle Delory. He's down fussing with my props, laughs Captain Ratty. He's what? Michelle isn't sure he heard right. Jojo loves to play chicken with my propellers. Captain Ratty glances at the gauges that indicate the engine's RPM. This is Island Diver's best speed for Jojo. The propellers are turning just fast enough to be thrilling, but slow enough for him to get real close. Close? I echo. How close does he get? Inches, mate. Right now, Jojo is dancing just inches from those big, mean props. I think Jojo likes Island Diver because she thinks she has the biggest propellers in these waters. Captain Ratty holds out a dive mask. Take a look for yourself. While Captain Ratty ties a thick rope of to a staunch railing, I don a pair of flippers, then grab the end of the rope and slip over the side. Island Diver is doing about 3 knots as I slide into the flowing water. On the surface, I take a quick deep breath through my snorkel and descend. The current shoves me closer towards the mossy hull of Island Diver. I see sharp-edged barnacles passing inches from my face. Then I'm below the hull and dropping back towards the stern. At first, all I see is a mass of swirling froth and bubbles. Then the big 3 foot diameter brass propellers come spinning into view. They're huge, encrusted with barnacles, and discolored with age. The blades are jagged edges and laced with wicked nicks. The twin propellers, with their triple blades, are revolving at about 150 RPM. Beyond the dangerous twirling propellers, I notice a sleek shape in rapid motion. Sliding farther down the rope, I see Jojo dancing precariously close to the brass blades. He moves swiftly from one propeller to the other, swimming forward until his snout is only inches from the wicked swirling blades. Then he drops back a few inches and rushes to the other propeller. This is very odd and dangerous behavior, yet the dolphin seemed to be enjoying himself. The propellers begin to slow, then stop as Captain Ratty arrives at our anchorage. Looking disappointed, not that I would know how a dolphin's face could show disappointment, Jojo swims to the surface for a breath of air. Noticing me, apparently for the first time, Jojo rushes in my direction, stopping at the last instant only a foot away. I've gotten to swim with many wild dolphins, but the encounters have been always short, and the dolphins didn't normally get too close. Jojo swims right up in my face and stares. He peers into my mask with one eye, then shifts his head to peer with the other. I'm under serious dolphin scrutiny and am wondering what he is thinking. Being so close with a real opportunity to actually look at this dolphin, to stare right back at the curious eyes regarding me, it is almost like meeting a new kid on the neighborhood block. Jojo bounces a few clicks off me to get my measure as I enthusiastically squeak back. Imagine two individuals about to become best friends. That is what I'm feeling. Later, Captain Ratty would confide that Jojo sometimes just instantly accepts a person and is willing to be their friend. I couldn't believe that I am to be this fortunate. Maybe Jojo could sense in that moment of our first contact that I'm the kind of person who would be a good friend for a dolphin. It off, it's often like that for dogs and cats who immediately befriend a complete stranger. All I do know is that I am on the verge of a dolphin person friendship that could lead to 3 weeks of incredible wonder and interaction with a very intelligent marine mammal. Jojo and I play tag for the better part of an hour, where I'm always it, despite my temporary advantage of using an underwater scooter. Finally, as the scooter's propeller slowly stops turning from lack of battery power, Jojo decides to swim off. He bounces a few more clicks in my direction, then disappears into the depths. The water feels lonely without my dolphin buddy. Climbing out of the warm tropical water, Captain Ratty is waiting for me with a towel. Amazing, isn't he? He says with a knowing smile. I can't believe we swam together for so long. I reply, then notice that the towel has a musty smell and is covered with some very suspicious stains. Opting to air dry, I drape the offending piece of cloth downwind on the rail. Actually, that was quite surprising, Captain Ratty says wistfully. Jojo doesn't normally play so much with someone the first time, expect, excepting, of course, for the dog. The dog? Yeah, there's a mutt on the next island in the chain. He and Jojo are buddies. They race each other through shallow surf. The dog tries to playfully nick the dolphin's tail, and Jojo tries his best to get under the dog. Why would Jojo want to get under a dog? I'm intrigued. Toss it in the air, of course. Captain Ratty pulls a frayed wallet out of his back pocket and digs out a worn picture, which he hands me. I carry this around because most people don't believe it. The picture's yellowed and a bit out of focus, but plainly there is a good sized dog flying upside down through the air with the dolphin in the water just beneath. I think about all our camera equipment and hope that we will get the opportunity to capture Jojo and his dog buddy at play. Think we could motor over to that island? I asked hopefully. Wouldn't be too good of an idea to take Island Diver that far from the local hardware store, confides Captain Ratty, if you get my drift. Disappointed, I again look at the dilapidated condition of the boat. Did you get it? Asks Ratty expectantly. Drift as in adrift? Oh, I laugh politely, then watch him head off to attend to a few chores before joining the rest of the team, storing our gear. It is late in the afternoon when the last piece of equipment is unboxed and placed in a handy location. I stretch, feeling a couple of reassuring pops in my spine from all the bending over, then lean against the railing. I'm at peace with the world as I watch the burning orb of the sun slowly begin to sink in the ocean. Abruptly, there is the sound squealing of static, then cannon and D blasts from the broadside of suspended speakers. They are in all shapes and sizes, not one matching the other. Captain Ratty flies up the ladder with a lopsided grin and asks, "How about this speaker system, huh?" "None of them match," I offer wearily. "Bought them all used at the swap meet, and even dug a couple of them out of the trash. It's amazing what some people will throw away." Captain stares proudly at his massive stereo system. Figured I couldn't buy the best, I would settle for the most. Every sunset, I put this album and spin the volume knob to max. Every sunset? I ask in dread. Yep, and watch this. Captain Ratty throws a switch, turning on a string of lights that are faded plastic fruits. Pretty classy, huh? Says proudly. Then adds, I figure the people at the resort will hear the music and see the lights and maybe want to come out for a dinner cruise. I look shoreward at an expensive Club Med resort and wonder what the management must think of this madman with his floating clunker, blaring music, and glowing fruit lights. You do this often? I'm already suspecting the answer. Every night for the last 3 years. It is the expected answer. Persistent, aren't you? You bet. Ratty rubs the stubble on his chin. Just hasn't worked yet. Then again, I don't give up easily. Hey, speaking of dinner, you guys ready for some chow? You're the cook? This is not the best of news. What are you going to make? It doesn't matter. I'll just throw something together out of the fridge. I watch him go dashing off below, followed closely by Clay. Clay Wilcox is one of our American divers. He stands 6 foot 2 inches tall and has the kind of build that highly interests most young ladies. Like all the Cousteau divers, Clay is a man with a diversity of talents. However, his main skill is cooking. Clay is a very talented chef. I decide to follow, anticipating that I might be helpful. It winds up being one of my better decisions. In the galley, term used loosely, Clay is ready to throttle Ratty. Opening a can of Chilean beans, then dumping it into a pot doesn't constitute cooking, he rages. And Clay glances into the pot in question. Did you forget to wash this? He yells. It just doesn't get much cleaner than that, Captain Ratty answers defensively. Besides, my water maker has been acting up. I don't like to waste too much fresh water. But it's crusty. He opens the cupboard under the sink in pursuit of cleaner and surprises a large colony of cockroaches. The many legged bugs rush for the darker recesses of the damp, moldy enclosure. I'll get 'em, yells Captain Ratty, attacking with a spray can of Raid. A spreading cloud of insecticides spills across the range where the beans are cooking. I imagine I see the flames surge higher under the blackened pot. Clay is outraged. Out, he orders, Go do your captain thing, but from now on, I am in charge of the galley. That night we dine on cold sandwiches, but no one complains. Clay spends the whole evening thoroughly cleaning a galley that has never before seen the business end of a Brillo pad. Clay separates the food stuff from the various insecticides, roach hotels, and rat traps. Deciding that the refrigerator is some sort of weird marine biological experiment, he empties the rust trays and slime-coated shelves directly into a trash can. Clay reluctantly saves a stick of butter, a carton of milk, a box of Cheerios, and a loaf of only slightly molded bread, and that is only because we need something for breakfast. The next morning I wake up on a lumpy mattress that smells of old mildew like an aged cheese. Michelle and Mark are still fast asleep, but Clay's bunk is empty. Then I notice that despite the bunk's rumbled look, he hasn't slept in it. Pulling on old t-shirt and swimsuit, I pad barefoot out into the corridor to go in search of my friend. I find Clay sleeping in the salon, a salon that has been transformed. Everything has been cleaned top to bottom. Nothing shines, only because the surfaces are worn and weren't of the best materials in the first place. There's still a lingering odor of mildew, but is mostly masked with the strong aroma of disinfectant. In the corner where Clay sleeps, there is a pile of full plastic trash bags. Stepping outside, I am feeling slightly guilty for not staying up late with Clay to help him clean. Yet in a way, I sense this is a personal thing with him. Sometimes it is good to tackle a big job alone, solely for the challenge and satisfaction of accomplishment. Then again, maybe I am only making excuses for myself. I am a morning person. Somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock at night, I usually run out of energy. Like this morning, I am up way before first light to take advantage of the quiet solitude. Climbing the ladder to the upper deck, I spend 15 minutes stretching, then slowly go through some basic karate exercises to limber up. For over a dozen years, I seriously studied and taught three forms of martial arts, earning a black belt in Korean Taekwondo, but my favorite style remains praying mantis kung fu. Taekwondo is a very direct, straightforward fighting style, while Chinese Kung Fu is a far more fluid, peaceful martial arts form. I like the elegant stance of the praying mantis as I mimic its unique fighting form. The mantis is a graceful and patient insect warrior, adopting a stance that favors the stalky, fluid movements of the mantis. I begin the first of a series of katas. A kata is a martial arts dance. Each movement is designed to flow into the next, to weave a flowing pattern of defensive and aggressive movements. All katas first begin with a defensive movement, which reinforces karate's preferable non-aggressive nature. The dance is strictly structured and usually requires months of serious practice before it can be mastered. Over the years, as a pupil becomes more adept and progresses up the series of dances, each kata becomes more challenging, with greater demands for agility and graceful form. After years of studying praying mantis kung fu, I achieved, but never reached higher than a brown belt. My Chinese instructor in Hawaii was a man of small physical stature, but he will always be a hero of huge proportions to me. I remember the Honorable Mr. Chang, when at the age of 70 he related the only time in his life that he had ever aggressively used karate. As a young child, his grandfather began teaching him kung fu because he was the smallest student at his elementary school and often the target of bullies. Instead of using his skills to hurt his tormentors, he learned to avoid their harassments. However, whenever they sought to grab him, little Chang had a slippery way of escaping their grasp. They quickly lost interest and shifted their attention to less challenging targets. Yet there finally came a day in Chang's late teens when avoidance didn't work. Chang's voice became quieter as he told the story. All of us in the Praying Mantis dojo leaned forward with great interest as our peaceful instructor's eyes got a fierce look as he recaptured the single moment of violence in his life. He was walking home late one night from the public dojo where he was teaching. Chang had to pass through a dark alley when before him four large Samoans stepped out of the shadows. One of them wore a dog chain around his neck. Chang quickly thought of the small bag he carried. This was a very special bag. On the outside, in bold white letters, were written the words Praying Mantis Karate Dojo, but on the inside were the various weapons of his martial arts form. Chang immediately decided that he would use the bag in his defense. The huge Samoans were blocking the narrow alleyway. Not a word had been said, but the moment was tense. When he was less than 5 feet from the dangerous young men, Chang lifts his bag high in front of him so the Samoans could read the bold words, Praying Mantis Karate Dojo. Watch out, joked the largest of the Samoans. This little twerp knows karate. Ah, replied Chang, we are all fortunate that the large Samoan gentleman can read. Horrible bloodshed has been averted, and each of us can now go to their home knowing that only good has come of this night. Laughing at the witty little Chinese youth, the Samoans gallantly stepped aside. In the dojo, we all laughed at the story. But then Chang said in all seriousness, in karate, intelligence is always your best defense. Had my words not worked, I would have tried to run away. But couldn't you have taken them? Inquired one of the enthusiastic younger students. I have no idea, replied Chang, nor did I want to find out. Violence should always, absolutely be the last resort. I have studied karate for over 60 years, yet never used it against another person in anger or hostility. On the upper deck of the Island Diver, I noticed a faint red light on the horizon, heralding the coming sunrise. I think of the Honorable Mr. Chang and remember his peaceful ways. I think of this small, quiet man who wore a frayed and faded black belt with 3 narrow red strips at its tip. The belt is worn by only 4 people in the world. It indicates that this man is an 8th-degree black belt. Yet Chang's greatest claim to success is the art form that in the art form is that he never aggressively used his skills to hurt anyone. It is true that we banged each other up on the mats as part of our training, but that is a necessary part of the instruction. In my own dozen years of studying karate, I have only once had to use the art form aggressively. A boisterous individual was determined to confront me until I dissuaded him with a simple come along. At the time, he had one finger planted in the middle of my chest, as he verbally related his intent to do me physical harm. Placing my hand on his, I gently yet firmly twisted his wrist, inverting it in a direction he didn't particularly like it to go. Locking the hold only requires mild pressure from one hand. Though a come along is rather painful, it causes no real damage. Having his complete attention allowed me to convince him with words that it wouldn't be to his advantage to bother me in the future. Since we had no further problems, I have to believe that my efforts were successful. Yet I can't help thinking that the Honorable Mr. Chang would have found a less violent and far more elegant way of handling this bully. Preparing to begin another kata, I adopt the Buk Yun To Tao To stance. White Ape steals the peach, then pause as a warm flash of bright light begins to spread across the horizon. Holding perfectly still in the awkward stance, I watch the chrome yellow light wash across the Caribbean waters, then hear the first stirring of voices below deck. Captain Ratty has discovered the wonder of a clean galley. He is excited. I hear him offering Clay a job, which elicits a response from Clay that offers hazardous repercussions to Captain Ratty's health, probably noting Clay's height in comment to physical fitness. I hear the good captain decide to address activities in the engine room. Slowly, I begin the kata in super slow motion. White Ape stealing peach becomes Sup Bat So, 18 old scholars. It is not the years in your life, but the life in your years that counts. Adlai Stevenson.